I came home to find my mother's funeral canceled, her body in a U-Haul, and my brother selling tickets to her memorial on Facebook. Maybe you know what it feels like to be invisible in your own family, to give everything and still be treated like you're taking up space. To realize, too late, that love and loyalty were never the same language. Let me know if you've ever been the one who stayed while everyone else just performed. It started the way grief always does, with silence that doesn't fit right. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital, scrubbing floors until my hands smelled like disinfectant and defeat. 6 years I'd been doing this. 6 years of night shifts, so I could be home during the day when Mom needed her meds, her bath, her hand held while she pretended not to be scared. 6 years of putting my life in a box labeled later while Declan built his Instagram empire and Siobhan color coordinated her grief for content. Mom died on a Tuesday. Quiet, soft, the way she did everything. I held her hand. I closed her eyes. I called the funeral home we'd chosen together, the one with the garden she liked, where light came through stained glass in colors that didn't hurt to look at. By Thursday, I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten anything that wasn't vending machine crackers, but I'd picked out her dress, the blue one, written her obituary in a way that felt true instead of pretty. I pulled into the driveway at dawn, and that's when I saw it. The U-Haul. Parked crooked on the lawn Mom used to tend, back doors open, a refrigerated cart half visible inside, the kind they wheel into morgues. My brother's Tesla was blocking the mailbox. Siobhan's Range Rover, the one sponsored by a wellness tea company, sat pristine near the porch. I walked closer. The smell hit me first. Cold metal and something chemical, something wrong. Mom was in there. My mother's body. In a rented truck. On our front lawn. I stood there, car keys still in my hand, brain trying to catch up with my eyes, trying to make it make sense. Declan came out the front door holding his phone, already filming. "Mara," he said, voice drenched in that influencer sympathy, that practiced softness. "We need to talk about being flexible right now." Flexible? I looked at him, at his perfectly distressed designer hoodie, at the ring light visible through the living room window. "Why is Mom in a U-Haul?" He sighed like I was the one being difficult. "The funeral home wanted $11,000, Mara. $11,000. For what? A room and some chairs? That's predatory. That's them taking advantage of grieving families. We had a plan. We had savings. We have a better plan." Siobhan appeared behind him, phone also out, already angled for good lighting. Her face was makeup perfect, eyes red in a way that looked intentional. We're doing something meaningful, something Mom would have actually wanted. I felt my chest tighten, the panic I'd learned to swallow in supply closets, the kind that makes your vision tunnel and your hands shake. "What are you talking about?" Declan smiled, patient, condescending, the way he used to smile when we were kids, and he'd explain why I was wrong about everything. "We're having the memorial here, at home, intimate, real, the way she lived." "In a U-Haul?" "The cart keeps her preserved. We rented a medical-grade unit. It's fine." He said it like I was being hysterical, like caring about dignity was an overreaction. Siobhan stepped forward, hand reaching for my shoulder. I stepped back. "We know you're tired," she said softly, voice honeyed with pity. "You gave so much. You don't have to carry this too. Let us handle it." Handle it. 6 years. I gave 6 years. I missed promotions, relationships, my entire 20s. I learned how to insert feeding tubes, measure morphine, hold someone while they vomited from chemo. I memorized the sound of her breathing so I'd wake up if it changed. And they wanted to handle it. "When is the service?" I asked. Declan and Siobhan exchanged a look, the kind that meant they'd already decided everything. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. "That's fast." "We want to honor her while the grief is fresh," Siobhan said, "while people still care." While people still care. I watched her adjust her phone angle, watched Declan check his view count. "Who's coming?" "Well?" Declan's smile widened. "That's the beautiful part. We're opening it up. Making it accessible. Mom touched so many lives through our content. People deserve to say goodbye. My stomach dropped. We're selling tickets, Siobhan added brightly. Tiered access. Front row is $150, general admission is $75, and we have a live stream option for $25. It's actually really affordable. The world tilted. Tickets. To my mother's funeral. Tiered seating. Live stream pricing. You're charging people to mourn our mother. We're creating community, Declan corrected. And yes, there are costs. The U-Haul rental isn't free, Mara. The cart isn't free. We're doing this ourselves because we refuse to let corporations profit off our pain. But you will, I thought. You absolutely will. I looked past them, through the open door, into the house Mom died in. The house she'd paid off working double shifts as a nurse for 30 years. The house she'd promised me, in a whisper, 3 weeks before she stopped being able to whisper. Ring lights everywhere, camera equipment, a backdrop that said, "Celebrating Linda," in script font. They'd turned our living room into a set. I need to see her, I said. She's not? Siobhan started. I need to see my mother. Declan's jaw tightened. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw what was underneath. Annoyance, inconvenience, the cold calculation of someone doing math on engagement rates. 5 minutes, he said. We're filming the unboxing of the memory table in 20. Unboxing. I walked to the U-Haul on legs that didn't feel like mine, climbed into the back. The cart was there, covered in plastic sheeting, condensation clouding the surface. I lifted the edge. Mom's face. Gray, peaceful, free. I touched her hand through the plastic. It was cold in a way that made my throat close. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Behind me, I heard Declan on the phone, voice bright and energized. Yeah, we're going live at noon with the ticket link. It's going to be huge. No, I'm thinking we cap it at 300 in person. Unlimited streaming. We can always do a second memorial if demand is high. I stood there in the dark of that truck, hand on my mother's hand, and felt something crack open inside me. Not grief. Not anymore. Clarity. For 6 years, I'd apologized for needing space, for asking them to visit, for existing as anything other than the quiet, convenient caretaker who made their negligence look like my choice. I was done apologizing. I climbed out, closed the doors, walked past my siblings without a word. Mara, where are you going? Siobhan called. We need you to approve the floral arrangements. I kept walking, got in my car, hands steady now, heart beating hard and clear. I had 12 hours before they turned my mother into content. 12 hours to find the will she'd signed, the one she'd made me promise to protect. 12 hours to remember that sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to stop letting the living bury you with them. By the time I pulled away, Declan was already streaming, pointing at the U-Haul, voice cracking with performed emotion. And I was already planning how this story would actually end. The notification came at 3 a.m, lighting up my phone like a small explosion in the dark. Siobhan's video already had 300,000 views. I sat up in bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and pressed play. Her face filled the screen. Perfect makeup, soft lighting, eyes glistening with tears that caught the glow just right. Behind her, our childhood living room transformed into something that looked like a set from a home renovation show. She was holding papers. I know you've all been asking, she said, voice trembling with practiced emotion, and I promised I'd be transparent with you through this journey. Today we gathered as a family to honor Mom's final wishes. My chest tightened. She left us a letter, words she wanted us to hear, even after. Her voice broke beautifully. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue, pale pink matching her sweater. Even after she was gone. The camera zoomed closer. I could see the paper now, the letterhead. Official. Legal. Mom wanted to make sure we understood her heart, Siobhan continued. She wrote that Declan and I were her rays of sunshine, her pride, and that she hoped Mara would continue serving others the way she'd served her, humbly, quietly, without needing recognition or reward. The words hit like stones dropping into still water. Serving others, humbly, without reward. 6 years. 6 years of my life, condensed into a directive to keep serving. Keep being quiet. Keep being small. She didn't leave instructions about money or property, Siobhan said softly, because Mom knew those things don't matter. What matters is love, legacy, family. The comments were already flooding in. Prayers for Mara, poor Mara, beautiful Mara, so selfless. #angel daughter, #service heart. 300,000 people pitying me for being exactly what my mother supposedly wanted. Invisible, useful, content with nothing. I turned off my phone, sat in the dark, felt something cold and precise sliding into place behind my ribs. Mom and I had signed a will 3 weeks ago. I'd been there. I'd watched her grip the pen with shaking hands, watched the lawyer read it back to her twice to make sure she understood. She'd looked at me and smiled, tired but certain. The house goes to you, she'd said. You earned it. That will didn't say anything about rays of sunshine or humble service, which meant Siobhan was either lying or she'd found a different document. I pulled out the folder I kept under my bed. Papers I'd organized over the years, Mom's medical records, insurance information, the business card from the lawyer who'd come to the hospital. Elias Navarro, estate attorney. We'd gone to high school together. He'd been kind then, quiet like me, the sort of person who noticed when you sat alone at lunch. He'd handled Mom's will pro bono, said it was the least he could do after everything she'd done for the community. I found his number, texted him at 3:15 in the morning because sleep felt impossible and waiting felt worse. Did you keep a copy of the will Mom signed, the real one? The response came faster than I expected. Yes, always. Why? I sent him the link to Siobhan's video. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, that's not the document your mother signed. Meet me at my office. 7 a.m. I didn't sleep after that. I watched the view count climb, watched the comments multiply, watched strangers construct a version of my mother that fit their narrative. The selfless matriarch who'd raised her children to care for others, even the difficult one who needed extra grace. By 6 a.m., the video had 500,000 views. Siobhan had posted a follow-up, a carousel of photos. Mom and Declan at his college graduation. Mom and Siobhan at a baby shower. Carefully curated moments that told a story about devotion and presence. There were no photos of me. Not because they didn't exist, but because I'd always been the one taking them. Elias's office was small, tucked above a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and yesterday's pastries. He looked the same as I remembered. Dark eyes, careful hands, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. He didn't make small talk. Just pulled up the video on his computer and watched it once, expression unchanging. Then he opened his filing cabinet and withdrew a folder. Set it on the desk between us. This is what your mother signed, he said, 3 weeks ago. Witnessed, notarized, filed with the county. I opened it. Read the words that mattered. I leave my home, paid in full, to my daughter Mara O'Connell, who sacrificed her youth, her opportunities, and her peace to ensure I didn't die alone. My throat closed. She was very clear, Elias said quietly. She wanted you to have security, stability, a place that was yours. She was worried. He hesitated. She was worried your siblings would try to take it. She was right. He nodded, pulled up another document on his screen, turned it toward me. This is the filing record. The will is legitimate, legally binding, and registered. Whatever Siobhan showed in that video, it's not this. So she's lying. Or she has a different document, an older one maybe, something your mother wrote years ago and never filed. But it doesn't matter. The most recent will, properly executed and filed, supersedes anything prior. I looked at the screen, at the proof, at the evidence that my mother had seen me, had valued what I'd given, had tried to protect me even after she was gone. Why would they do this, I asked. Why perform it publicly? Elias leaned back, fingers steepled. Control the narrative. If everyone believes your mother wanted you to have nothing, it's easier to pressure you to give up everything. Public opinion becomes leverage. I thought about the comments, the prayers, the pity. They're making me look pathetic. They're making you look like you have no claim. So when they move to take the house, sell it, split the proceeds, you'll look greedy for fighting back. The weight of it settled over me. The strategy, the calculation, the way they'd weaponized grief and turned strangers into an audience for my humiliation. What do I do? Elias pulled out a notepad, started writing. First, we file a cease and desist. They can't legally make claims about your mother's estate using fraudulent documents. Second, we request the original of whatever paper Siobhan showed. If she can't produce it, or if it's not properly executed, it's worthless. Third, he looked up. You prepare yourself, because when they realize you're not backing down, they'll escalate. Escalate how? His expression darkened. People who monetize grief don't stop when the money's threatened. They double down. I left his office with a folder full of documents and a plan that felt fragile and necessary. The cease and desist would be sent by end of day. The request for the original will would follow, and I would go home, to the house that was legally mine, and wait for them to show their hand. I didn't have to wait long. By the time I pulled into the driveway, Declan was on the porch, phone in hand, live stream active. And here she is now, he said, voice heavy with concern. My sister Mara, who we love so much, who's been through so much, who we're worried about. I got out of the car slowly, deliberately. Mara, can we talk? He moved toward me, camera angled perfectly to catch both our faces. Privately? Turn off the camera. I just want to document. Turn it off, or I'm leaving. He sighed, the put-upon exhale of someone dealing with an unreasonable child. But he tapped the screen, and the red light died. You talk to a lawyer, he said. No question, statement. I did. He ran a hand through his hair. That's hurtful, Mara. We're family. We should be handling this together, not bringing in outsiders. You performed Mom's will on TikTok. We shared her wishes. There's a difference. You lied. His jaw tightened. For a moment the mask slipped, and I saw the cold machinery underneath. The calculations. The irritation. Be very careful, he said softly. You're exhausted. You're grieving. People understand that. But if you start making accusations, if you start attacking us publicly, it's going to look really bad for you. People love us, Mara. They trust us. They're not going to believe that you'd lie about our mother's final wishes for views? That you'd invent a conspiracy because you're angry we got more than you did. The words landed precisely where he intended. A surgical strike designed to make me doubt myself, second guess, retreat. But I'd spent 6 years learning to read people who were dying, learning to distinguish between real pain and performance, between truth and the stories people told themselves. And I knew exactly what I was looking at. Show me the will you read on camera, I said. The original. It's being processed. Show me. Siobhan has it. Then I'll ask her. I moved toward the door. He blocked me. You don't live here anymore, he said. This isn't your house. Actually, I said, voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. It is. Mom left it to me. In a will that was filed 3 weeks ago. Properly notarized, properly executed. You can call the county clerk if you want to verify. His face went white, then red. That's not real, legal, convenient. I stepped closer. I don't care what you thought would happen. I don't care what narrative you built. Mom wanted me to have this house, and I'm not giving it up because you need content. For a long moment, we stood there, inches apart, years of dismissal and diminishment hanging in the air between us. Then he smiled, slow, cold. Okay, he said. Okay, Mara, if that's how you want to play this. He pulled out his phone, started typing. What are you doing? Texting Siobhan, letting her know we need to adjust our approach. You've made your position clear. Now we'll make ours. He walked past me, got in his Tesla, and drove away. I stood there in the driveway, the house looming behind me, and felt the first real stirrings of fear. Not because I was wrong, but because I was right. And people who've built their lives on performance don't handle truth well. My phone buzzed. A text from Elias. Just got an email from Siobhan's lawyer. They're requesting a psychiatric evaluation, claiming you're mentally unfit to contest the estate. I read it twice. 3 times. They were going to try to have me declared incompetent, unfit, too damaged by grief to think clearly. I texted back, "Can they do that?" His response came immediately. "They can try, but so can we. Get ready, this is about to get ugly." I looked up at the house. At the windows Mom used to look out of, waiting for me to come home from work. At the porch where she'd sat on good days, wrapped in blankets, telling me stories about when she was young. And I realized something that felt like glass breaking and light pouring through. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I was afraid of losing. And those were two very different things. Some doors close softly. Others slam behind you like a warning. And as I walked into that house, my house, I understood that the only way forward was through the fire they were about to start. The police arrived at noon, lights flashing red and blue across the house Mom died in. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard the sirens, sitting with a cup of coffee gone cold, reviewing the documents Elias had sent. Proof of ownership, proof of intent, proof that I wasn't losing my mind even though my siblings were trying to make it look that way. The knock came hard, official, the kind that makes your heart spike even when you haven't done anything wrong. I opened the door to find two officers, expressions neutral, hands resting near their belts in that casual ready position that says they're prepared for anything. "Mara O'Connell?" "Yes. We received a call about a welfare check. May we come in?" Behind them, I could see Declan's Tesla parked at the curb, his phone out, angled toward the porch, live streaming. Of course he was live streaming. "What kind of welfare check?" The older officer, badge-reading Martinez, glanced at his partner. "Your brother called, said you're not yourself, said he's worried you might hurt yourself." The words took a moment to land, to crystallize into meaning. "Hurt myself. I'm fine," I said. "Mind if we talk inside? Just to confirm everything's okay?" I looked past them again, at Declan, at the camera, at the growing crowd of neighbors gathering on lawns, phones out, capturing whatever drama was unfolding. I stepped aside, let them in. The house felt different with strangers in it, smaller, more fragile. The officers moved through the space with professional efficiency, taking in the scene, the medical equipment still stacked in the corner, the half-packed boxes of Mom's belongings, the papers spread across the kitchen table. "Your brother mentioned pills," Martinez said. "Said you've been hoarding medication." I almost laughed. Would have if the situation weren't so grotesque. "My melatonin? Can we see it?" I walked to the bathroom, pulled the bottle from the medicine cabinet, handed it to him. Standard dose, half empty, prescription label clearly visible. He examined it, nodded, set it on the counter. He also said, "You've been making threats, talking about harming yourself or others." "I haven't." "You've been under a lot of stress, though. Your mother just passed. 6 days ago." "That's recent. That's hard." His voice was gentle, practiced, the kind of gentleness that precedes control. Sometimes grief makes us do things we wouldn't normally do, say things we don't mean. I understood what was happening, saw the shape of it forming in the air between us. They were building a narrative, setting the stage for me to be the unstable one, the dangerous one, the one who needed intervention. "I'm grieving," I said carefully, "but I'm not suicidal. I'm not a danger to anyone. Your brother seems to think. My brother is trying to steal my house." The words hung there, sharp and clear. Martinez exchanged another glance with his partner. The younger one, whose name tag read Chen, pulled out a notepad. "Can you explain that?" So I did. Calmly. Precisely, I showed them the will. The documents from Elias. The proof that this house legally was mine. I showed them Siobhan's video, the fabricated reading. The 300,000 people who'd been fed a lie. I showed them the cease and desist letter Elias had sent that morning. And I explained, in the same steady voice I'd used for 6 years when advocating for my mother's care, that this wasn't about mental health. This was about money, control, and the desperate measures people take when they realize they're losing both. Martinez listened, read through the documents, looked at the video, When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, less gentle, more direct. This is a civil matter. We can't intervene in estate disputes. I know. But we do have to file a report. We were called. We responded. We'll document that you appear stable, coherent, and not a threat. Thank you. That said, he hesitated. Family situations like this can escalate. If you feel unsafe, call us. Immediately. They left through the front door. I watched them talk to Declan, watched his face fall as they shook their heads, watched him realize his performance hadn't worked. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it, and felt something close to triumph. He'd tried to weaponize the system, tried to use mental health laws, crisis intervention, the authority of the state to paint me as incompetent. And it had failed. But the feeling didn't last. Because an hour later, my phone exploded with notifications. Declan had edited the footage, posted it with a caption that made my stomach turn. We tried to help her. Police confirmed she's in crisis. Please pray for our sister as she struggles with grief-induced delusions. We love you, Mara. We're here when you're ready. The comments were immediate, vicious in their sympathy. Poor thing, she's breaking down. This is what happens when you give too much. The siblings are saints for trying to help her. 300 comments in 10 minutes. 1,000 in an hour. All of them constructing a version of me that didn't exist. Fragile, delusional, dangerous. I tried to comment, tried to post the truth. But he tagged me in a way that made it impossible to respond, without looking defensive, without feeding the narrative. I was watching my character assassination happen in real time, one emoji at a time. My phone rang. Elias. I saw the video. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let me handle this. He's telling everyone I'm mentally ill. I know, and we'll sue him for defamation if we need to. But right now, silence is power. Let him keep talking. Let him build his case on lies. And when we get to court, we'll bury him with facts. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that truth would matter, that evidence would win, that the system wouldn't fail me the way it had almost failed an hour ago. But I'd spent 6 years in hospitals, watching people die because insurance wouldn't cover treatment, watching families fall apart because grief had no protocol, watching good intentions collide with bureaucracy and lose. I knew how easily truth could be drowned out by people who told better stories. What if? I stopped, because I heard something outside. Shouting, movement, the sound of something heavy hitting pavement. I went to the window, looked out at the driveway where the U-Haul still sat, freezer cart still inside, Mom's body still waiting for a funeral that kept getting delayed by strategy and spectacle. Aunt Lorraine was there, standing in front of the truck, phone out, yelling at someone I couldn't see. I opened the front door. Absolute disrespect! You people are sick! She was live on Facebook. I could see the red light, the frantic scrolling of comments. Lorraine, what? She spun toward me, eyes wild. The cord's unplugged. The freezer's off. Your mother is... Her voice cracked. She's leaking, Mara. She's leaking onto the driveway. The world tilted. I ran to the U-Haul, pulled open the doors. The smell hit me immediately. Chemical and organic. Wrong in a way that bypassed thought and went straight to nausea. The cart was warm. Condensation had turned to liquid, pooling beneath the plastic, seeping through the seams. How long has it been off? I don't know. I just got here. I was coming to... Lorraine's face was pale, green-edged. Who would do this? But I already knew. I looked up at the house, at the security camera Declan had installed above the porch, the one that watched everything, recorded everything. He'd done this. Or Siobhan, or both of them together. They'd unplugged the freezer, let Mom's body degrade, turned her preservation into desecration. And they'd done it because they knew I'd have to move her. Knew I'd have to act fast. Knew it would look like panic, like instability, like proof of everything they'd been saying. Lorraine was still streaming, still showing the truck, the fluid, the horror of it. Are you people seeing this? She shouted into her phone. This is what they did? This is what happens when you treat people like content. Her voice rang out across the neighborhood, raw, furious, unfiltered. And in the comments, I saw the tide beginning to turn. Wait, they left her body in a truck? Why isn't she buried yet? This is messed up. Small voices at first. Questions. Doubt. The beginning of cracks in the narrative my siblings had built. I pulled out my phone, called the funeral home we'd originally chosen, the one with the garden and the stained glass. This is Mara O'Connell. My mother is Linda O'Connell. I need you to come get her. Right now. I don't care what it costs. They came within the hour. Professional. Discreet. They loaded Mom's body with the kind of care my siblings never had, and drove away while Lorraine kept streaming, kept narrating, kept showing the world exactly what had happened. By the time the sun set, the video had 200,000 views. And the comments had shifted. Where are the siblings? This feels exploitative. Something's not right here. I sat on the porch steps, exhausted, watching Aunt Lorraine chain smoke in the driveway while she scrolled through comments and laughed, sharp, bitter sounds that echoed in the dark. They really thought they could get away with it, she said. Really thought they could turn your mom into merch and no one would notice. They still might. She looked at me. Something softened in her face. You know what your mom told me? Week before she died. She said, Lorraine, if anything happens to me, you make sure Mara doesn't let them win. You make sure she fights. My throat closed. She knew? Of course she knew. Mothers always know. Lorraine flicked ash into the grass. She just hoped she was wrong. I thought about that. About Mom lying in that hospital bed, weak and fading, still worrying about what would happen after, still trying to protect me even as her body betrayed her. And I understood, with a clarity that felt like cold water, that the only way to honor her wasn't to stay quiet, wasn't to be humble, wasn't to serve others humbly the way Siobhan's fake will had prescribed. It was to fight, loudly, publicly, without apology. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, hit record. My name is Mara O'Connell, I said, and I need to tell you what's really happening. I told them everything. The canceled funeral, the U-Haul, the fake will, the psychiatric evaluation threat, the unplugged freezer. I showed them the documents, the proof, the truth in black and white. And when I posted it, I tagged Declan, Siobhan, every follower they had, every person who'd prayed for me, pitied me, consumed me like content. Within minutes, the views started climbing. Within an hour, they'd passed Siobhan's video. And by the time I went to bed that night, I'd received a text from Elias. They're asking for a settlement meeting. They want to negotiate. I read it twice, let the meaning sink in. They were scared. For the first time since Mom died, my siblings were actually scared. I typed back, no settlement. We go to court. His response came immediately. Are you sure? I looked around the dark house, at the empty space where Mom's medical equipment had been, at the mantle where her urn would eventually sit, at the home she'd fought to give me. I was sure. Because some battles aren't about winning. They're about refusing to disappear quietly into the narrative someone else wrote for you. And I was done being quiet. The email from the funeral home arrived at 2 a.m, subject line reading, urgent, unauthorized cremation order. I was awake, had been for hours, sitting in the dark with my laptop open, reviewing discovery documents Elias had subpoenaed, receipts, contracts, email chains that mapped out exactly how my siblings had been planning to monetize Mom's death. But this email was different. I opened it with hands that had stopped shaking days ago, replaced by something steadier, colder. Dear Ms. O'Connell, we received a cremation authorization form this afternoon, signed by Siobhan O'Connell, claiming to be next of kin and executor of estate. However, our records show you as the legal contact. Please advise immediately, as services are scheduled for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning? Less than 12 hours from now. I scrolled down. They'd attached the form, Siobhan's signature, bold and confident. A checkbox marked Express Service. A note in the comments section that made my stomach turn. Please proceed with standard cremation. Ashes to be divided into 500 portions per attached specifications. 500 portions. I clicked the attachment. A product mock-up loaded on screen. Small glass vials on delicate chains. Each one labeled Forever with Linda in script font. A price point. $47 per unit. $23,500. She was going to turn my mother into jewelry, into merchandise, into limited edition memorial products for her followers to wear and photograph and post about. I called Elias. He answered on the second ring, voice alert despite the hour. They ordered a cremation. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., they're planning to divide her ashes into necklaces. 500 of them. They already have the product specs. Silence on his end. Then a slow exhale. Forward me everything. I'll file an emergency injunction in the morning. They can't cremate without proper authority, and you're the executor. What if we're too late? We won't be. I'll camp outside the courthouse if I have to. I hung up, forwarded the emails, sat in the blue light of my laptop screen, and tried to understand how we'd gotten here. How grief had become a business model. How my mother's body had become inventory. How the people who were supposed to love her had looked at her death and seen profit margins. But I already knew. I'd watched it happen in real time over 6 years. Watched Declan film her on bad days for sympathy content. Watched Siobhan stage photos of herself caring for Mom. Photos taken during 15-minute visits that ended the second the lighting stopped working. They'd been rehearsing this, preparing for the moment they could monetize her completely, without her consent or consciousness to interfere. I just hadn't wanted to believe they'd actually do it. By 7 a.m., I was parked outside the funeral home, waiting, watching the entrance like I was on surveillance. Elias pulled up 10 minutes later, briefcase in hand, injunction filed and approved by a judge who'd apparently shared his horror at the situation. We walked in together. The funeral director, a woman named Patricia, with kind eyes and 20 years of experience written in the set of her shoulders, met us in the lobby. Ms. O'Connell, Mr. Navarro, she looked relieved. I'm glad you're here. The other Ms. O'Connell arrived an hour ago. She's been very insistent. Where is she? Viewing room B. Patricia hesitated. She's filming. Of course she was. We found Siobhan standing in front of Mom's casket. The cheap one, cardboard, exactly as the documents had described. Her phone was propped on a tripod, ring light illuminating her face as she spoke to the camera with practiced sorrow. Saying goodbye is never easy, but knowing she'll be with me always, close to my heart, makes this moment beautiful instead of broken. She was wearing one of the necklaces, a prototype. The vial catching light, a few grains of what might have been ash visible inside. I felt Elias's hand on my arm, steadying, warning. Siobhan. She spun, face shifting from grief to annoyance in the split second before she remembered the camera was recording. Then the mask came back, softer, sadder. Mara, I'm so glad you're here. We can say goodbye together. You ordered a cremation without authorization. I'm her daughter. I have every right. You're not the executor. I am. I pulled out my phone, showed her the injunction. The cremation is canceled. Mom's body stays intact until the court decides what happens next. Her eyes went sharp, the camera forgotten. You can't do this. I already did. This is insane. This is you being controlling and selfish and trying to sell our mother's ashes for $47 a vial? The words landed like a slap. Siobhan's face went white, then red. That's not. It's a memorial product. It's about connection, about keeping her close. It's about $23,000 in pre-orders. Elias stepped forward, holding out a document. We subpoenaed your Shopify account. You have 497 confirmed sales, $47,259 in revenue. For ashes you don't own, from a body you don't have the right to cremate. Siobhan grabbed for the paper. Read it. I watched the calculations happening behind her eyes, the math of exposure, the cost of being caught. Those were just people wanted to pre-order. I was going to refund them if what? If you got away with it? She looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in 6 years, I saw something other than dismissal in her expression. Fear. You're going to ruin everything, she said quietly. Everything I built. Everything Declan and I worked for. Because you can't let go of the past. You mean the past 6 years, where I kept Mom alive while you built a brand? We all grieve differently, Mara. This isn't grief. This is commerce. She reached for her phone, tapped the screen. The recording stopped. Without the camera, she was different, smaller, less polished. The performance dropped, and what remained was just a person who'd bet everything on content and was watching the house of cards shake. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to leave. I want you to stop pretending this is about Mom. I want you to tell your followers the truth." "The truth?" "That you tried to cremate her without permission so you could sell her ashes online." Siobhan laughed, sharp, bitter. "No one will believe that. You sound insane." "They will when Elias presents the evidence in court." "Court?" She said it like the word was foreign. "You're actually taking this to court?" "Next week, along with the will dispute, the defamation claim, and now this, attempted unlawful cremation and fraud." I watched her process it, watched the reality land. "We could settle," she said. "We could work this out privately. Families shouldn't air this kind of thing publicly." "You already made it public. You posted the fake will. You sold tickets to the funeral. You tried to have me institutionalized on live stream. This has been public from the beginning." That was Declan's idea. There it was, the crack, the pivot to self-preservation. "Declan planned all of it," she continued, voice faster now. "The U-Haul, the tickets, the psychiatric evaluation. I just went along because he said it would work. He said you'd back down. But you ordered the cremation." She hesitated. "He told me to. Said we needed to move fast before you stopped us." I looked at Elias. He was already taking notes. "Are you willing to testify to that?" Siobhan's eyes widened. "I?" "In court, under oath. Are you willing to tell a judge that Declan orchestrated this?" The silence stretched. I could see her weighing it. Loyalty versus survival. The brand versus the consequences. "I need to think." "You have until tomorrow. After that, Elias files additional charges and you're both equally liable." We left her standing there in that viewing room, surrounded by ring lights and cameras and the cardboard casket she'd ordered with expedited shipping. Patricia met us in the hallway, expression carefully neutral. "What would you like us to do with your mother?" I thought about it. About the garden Mom had loved. About the stained glass and the quiet and the dignity she'd deserved from the beginning. The service we originally planned, this Thursday. 2-page M, private, family only. And family is? Me and Aunt Lorraine, no one else. Patricia nodded, understanding. We walked out into morning light that felt too bright, too normal for what had just happened. Elias unlocked his car but didn't get in. Just stood there, looking at me with something close to wonder. "You're different," he said. "Different how?" "Stronger, or maybe you always were and I just didn't see it." I thought about the girl I'd been in high school, quiet, apologetic, always trying to take up less space. I thought about the woman I'd become over 6 years of caregiving, tired, invisible, erased by other people's needs. And I thought about who I was now, standing in a funeral home parking lot at 8 a.m, having just stopped my sister from cremating our mother for profit. "I got tired of being small," I said. He smiled. "It suits you, being sharp instead." I drove home with the injunction in my passenger seat, and my phone buzzing with messages I didn't read. The house was quiet when I arrived. Still, mine. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop to review the rest of the discovery documents Elias had sent. And that's when I found it. Buried in the email chain between Siobhan and the funeral home, an attachment I'd missed before. A contract, signed 3 months ago. With a production company. For a documentary about a family's journey through terminal illness and loss. Rights to all footage, all content, all story elements. $50,000 advance against future earnings. $50,000. 3 months ago, when Mom was still alive. They'd sold the rights to her death before it even happened. I sat there staring at the screen, coffee going cold in my hands, and felt the last thread of doubt snap. This wasn't family. This wasn't grief gone wrong or pressure or stress. This was calculation, strategy, a business plan built on my mother's slow fade and my silence. and I was done being part of the product. I forwarded the contract to Elias with a single line. Add this to the filing. His response came instantly. This changes everything. This is fraud, exploitation, possibly elder abuse if they filmed her without capacity to consent. We can bury them. I read it twice. Let the meaning settle. We could win. Not just the house, not just the will, everything. Their content, their revenue, their carefully constructed brands built on mom's suffering. All of it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Mara? Declan's voice. Tight, strained. We need to talk. We're done talking. Siobhan told me what you found. The production contract. Listen, that's not what it looks like. It looks like you sold Mom's story for $50,000 while she was dying. Silence. We needed the money, he said finally, for her care. For the house. We were trying to help. You were trying to profit. It's not. Mara, please, can we meet? Just you and me. No lawyers, no cameras, just family. I thought about saying yes. Thought about giving him one more chance to explain, to apologize, to be human. But I'd given him chances for 6 years, and he'd used every single one to take more. See you in court, I said, and hung up. The house was quiet after that. The kind of quiet that feels like an ending and a beginning wrapped together in the same breath. I walked through the rooms Mom had lived in, touched the walls she'd touched, stood in the kitchen where she'd taught me to cook, before the illness made eating impossible. And I understood something that felt like peace settling over old wounds. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about justice, though that mattered too. It was about saying no, finally, completely, to people who'd mistaken my kindness for permission and my grief for opportunity. Some battles aren't about winning. They're about refusing to be erased from your own story. And as the afternoon light slanted through windows Mom used to look out of, I finally understood that the hardest part wasn't fighting back. It was believing I deserved to. The courtroom audio went live at 9 a.m., and within minutes, 40,000 people were listening. I sat in the gallery, hands folded in my lap, watching Declan and Siobhan at the defense table. They looked different under fluorescent lights, smaller, less curated. Declan's hair wasn't perfectly styled. Siobhan's makeup was heavier than usual, trying to hide the sleeplessness that showed in the set of her shoulders. Their lawyer, expensive and sharp-suited, kept leaning over to whisper things that made them both nod without conviction. Elias sat at our table alone, calm, prepared. A stack of documents in front of him that represented months of discovery condensed into irrefutable evidence. The judge entered. Everyone stood. And I felt the weight of the moment settle over the room like a held breath. This was it, the culmination of everything. 6 years of caregiving, 2 weeks of horror, and now, finally, accountability. The judge was a woman in her 60s, reading glasses perched on her nose, expression that suggested she'd seen every variation of human behavior and been impressed by none of it. She reviewed the case summary, looked up at both tables. This is a dispute over estate distribution, is that correct? Elias stood, yes, Your Honor. But it's also a case involving fraud, defamation, attempted cremation without authorization, and exploitation of a deceased person's image for commercial gain. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly. That's quite a list. The evidence supports all of it. She gestured for him to proceed. Elias started with the will, projected it on the screen for the courtroom to see. Mom's signature, the witness signatures, the date, 3 weeks before she died. Linda O'Connell was of sound mind when she signed this document. She explicitly stated that her home should go to her daughter Mara, who had provided 6 years of full-time care. This will was properly executed, witnessed, notarized, and filed with the county. He clicked to the next slide. Siobhan's TikTok video. The fake reading. The manufactured tears. 3 days after Mrs. O'Connell's death, The defendant, Siobhan O'Connell, posted this video to her social media account, which has 2 million followers. In it, she claims to be reading her mother's will and states that the deceased left no property to Mara O'Connell, instead asking that she continue serving others humbly without material reward. The judge watched the video in silence. I watched her face, looking for any reaction. This document she references, the judge said, does it exist? If it does, they've refused to produce it. We believe it's either fabricated entirely or is an outdated document that was never properly executed. Either way, it has no legal standing. Declan's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my clients were acting in good faith based on their understanding of their mother's wishes. Good faith doesn't typically involve social media performances, the judge said dryly. Continue, Mr. Navarro. Elias clicked to the next exhibit. Security camera footage, timestamp visible in the corner. The screen showed the driveway, the U-Haul, and Declan walking up to the freezer cart, bending down and unplugging the power cord. The courtroom went completely silent. He stood there for a moment in the footage, checking his phone, then walked away. The timestamp read 2:17 page M, 6 hours before Aunt Lorraine discovered the body was degrading. The defendant deliberately disabled the refrigeration unit containing his mother's body, Elias said, voice even, but waited. We believe this was done to force Ms. O'Connell to act quickly, to appear unstable, and to justify the psychiatric evaluation he'd called for earlier that day. I watched Declan's face, watched the color drain from it, watched him lean toward his lawyer and whisper something urgent. The judge's expression had shifted, no longer neutral, something harder underneath. Is there an explanation for this? Declan's lawyer stood again. My client states that he was checking the equipment and may have accidentally unplugged a refrigeration unit containing human remains and then walked away without noticing. Silence. Your Honor, emotions were running high. The family was under immense stress. That's not an explanation, that's an excuse. She looked at Elias. What else? He pulled up the next document. Siobhan's Shopify dashboard, the product listing, the mock-ups of the necklaces, the pre-order numbers. 497 confirmed sales, $47,259 in revenue. The defendant, Siobhan O'Connell, created a memorial product line using her mother's anticipated ashes. She took pre-orders while her mother's body was still unburied. The product description promises authentic ash content, and customers were required to sign an NDA acknowledging that the ash might not be human-derived. The judge removed her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. Not human-derived. Correct. We have the NDA. We have the production contract with the manufacturer. We have everything. He displayed the NDA on screen. The clause was highlighted in yellow. Purchaser acknowledges that ash content may be symbolic rather than literal and agrees not to pursue legal action regarding authenticity of materials. I watched the judge read it, watched her face move through disbelief into something close to disgust. They were going to sell fake ashes? Or at minimum, they wanted legal protection in case they did. The cremation was ordered without authorization. Ms. O'Connell intervened before it could proceed. The judge looked at Siobhan. Anything to say? Siobhan stood slowly. Her lawyer tried to pull her back down, but she shook him off. It was meant to be meaningful, she said, voice small, breaking. People wanted a way to remember her, to feel connected. I was trying to help them grieve. For $47 each. The production costs were minimal, according to the manufacturer's invoice Mr. Navarro submitted. You were looking at an 85% profit margin. Siobhan sat back down, the fight gone out of her. Elias continued, document after document. The production company contract, signed 3 months before Mom died. The email chain about filming her without proper consent. The ticket sales for the memorial service. The cease and desist letter they'd ignored. Every piece of evidence was another brick in a wall that had no gaps, no room for interpretation. And then Elias pulled up the final exhibit. Hospital security footage. The timestamp showed 3 weeks earlier, Mom's room. She was in bed, pale and thin but alert, awake. Elias and the notary were there, going through the will page by page. I was sitting beside Mom's bed, holding her hand. And in the hallway, visible through the door's window, was Siobhan, filming herself with her phone, tears on her face, caption visible on screen. Hardest day of my life. Please keep my mom in your prayers. Link in bio for ways to support our family. The link led to a GoFundMe that had raised $12,000 for medical expenses that insurance had already covered. The judge stared at the screen for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but absolutely clear. Let me make sure I understand. While your mother was signing a legal will leaving her home to the daughter who cared for her, you were in the hallway filming a plea for donations you didn't need? Siobhan didn't answer. And those donations, where did they go? Her lawyer stood. Your Honor, that's not relevant to. I'm making it relevant. Where did the money go? Silence. Elias provided the answer. Bank records show the funds were transferred to the defendant's personal accounts. None of it went to medical expenses. The judge closed the folder in front of her, removed her glasses, looked at Declan and Siobhan with an expression I'd seen before on doctors' faces when they'd run out of options and patience. I've presided over estate disputes for 17 years, she said. I've seen families torn apart by grief, by miscommunication, by genuine disagreement about what their loved ones would have wanted. This is not that. This is exploitation. This is commodification of a human being who couldn't consent and a systematic attempt to defraud both the court and the public. She looked at Elias. What are you asking for? Full enforcement of the will is written. The house goes to Ms. O'Connell. Additionally, we're requesting that all revenue generated from content using Linda O'Connell's image, story, or death be transferred to Ms. O'Connell under unjust enrichment. The defendants profited from content they had no right to monetize. How much revenue are we discussing? Approximately $120,000 across platforms, sponsorships, and product sales. The number hung in the air, concrete, damning. The judge turned to Declan and Siobhan's lawyer. Response? He stood slowly, a man who knew he was holding a losing hand. Your Honor, while some of my clients' decisions may appear questionable, they believed they were honoring their mother's memory. We request leniency and ask that the estate be divided equally, as would be standard in the absence of a clear will. There is a clear will. A will signed under potentially compromised circumstances, witnessed by a notary, an attorney, and hospital staff who all confirmed Ms. O'Connell's capacity. Try again. He sat down. The judge made notes on her pad. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of her pen and the ambient noise of 40,000 people listening remotely, waiting for justice to arrive. Finally, she looked up. The will stands. The house goes to Mara O'Connell, free and clear. Furthermore, I'm ordering that all monetized content using Linda O'Connell's image or story be demonetized immediately, and all revenue generated to date be transferred to Ms. O'Connell within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges and potential fraud prosecution. Siobhan made a sound, quiet, broken. Additionally, I'm granting an emergency restraining order. Declan and Siobhan O'Connell are prohibited from contacting Mara O'Connell, entering the property, or posting any content referencing Linda O'Connell or this case. Violations will result in immediate arrest. She closed her folder. This court finds that the defendants engaged in a calculated scheme to defraud both their sister and the public. Their actions constitute elder abuse, fraud, and defamation. I'm referring this case to the district attorney for potential criminal prosecution. The gavel came down, and it was over. I sat there, hands still folded, heart beating steady and clear, and watched my siblings stand on unsteady legs, watch their lawyer gather papers with the efficiency of someone already planning his exit. Watch Declan pull out his phone, then remember he couldn't post, couldn't perform, couldn't spin this into content. They walked out without looking at me. The door closed behind them with a sound like finality. Elias turned to me, smiled. We won. We did. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of a long illness, relief, exhaustion. the strange lightness of putting down weight you'd carried so long you forgot what your shoulders felt like without it. We left through the side exit to avoid cameras. The sun was bright outside, too bright, the kind of light that makes you squint and realize how long you've been in the dark. Elias walked me to my car, handed me a folder with all the final documents. The funds will transfer within 30 days. The restraining order is effective immediately. You're free, Mara. You're actually free. I took the folder, held it against my chest. Thank you. You did this. You fought. You refused to disappear. I thought about the girl who'd stood in that driveway 2 weeks ago, staring at a U-Haul containing her mother's body, too shocked to process what her family had become. I thought about the woman who'd stood in a funeral home 3 days ago, stopping a cremation with an injunction and her voice. And I thought about who I was now, standing in a courthouse parking lot with proof that quiet people can become sharp when they need to, that kindness isn't weakness, that sometimes love means saying no. I drove home slowly, through streets that felt different now, lighter, mine. The house was waiting when I arrived. Still, quiet, no cameras, no ring lights, no performance. Just space, and possibility, and the memory of a woman who'd loved me enough to make sure I'd have both. I set Mom's urn on the mantel. Proper urn this time, not cardboard. Not a product, just a simple container holding what remained of a person who'd been complicated and flawed and human and mine. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Aunt Lorraine had texted earlier saying she'd give me space. Elias was back at his office filing the final paperwork. I opened the door to find a courier, box in hand. Mara O'Connell? Yes. He handed me the package. Small, light, no return address. I signed for it, closed the door, stared at the label. Mom's teeth. Forgot these, sis? My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a USB drive. Nothing else. Just the drive and a small note in handwriting I recognized. For when you need to remember why you fought. Mom's handwriting. From before the tremors made it illegible. I plugged the USB into my laptop. A single video file loaded on screen. I pressed play. Mom's face appeared, bald from chemo, thin, but smiling. The camera was shaky, probably her holding the phone herself. Hi, baby, she said. Voice weak but clear. If you're watching this, it means they pushed you too far. It means you had to fight back. And I'm guessing you feel guilty about it. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Don't. They made their choices. You made yours. And I'm so proud of you, Mara. So proud of the woman you've become. The woman who stayed when they left. The woman who loved me when I was hard to love. She coughed, took a shaky breath. I left you the house because you earned it. Because you sacrificed everything and never asked for recognition. And because I knew they'd try to take it. I knew. And I wanted to make sure you had something that was yours. Something they couldn't monetize or perform or turn into content. Tears were streaming down my face now. Keep the house, baby. Fill it with your life. Let it be the place you build yourself back into the person you were, before you became my caretaker. And if they fight you, if they try to make you feel small or selfish or wrong, burn them down. You have my permission. You have my blessing. She smiled, tired, loving. I love you, Mara, more than words, more than they ever understood, and I'm sorry I won't be there to see what you do next, but I know it's going to be beautiful. The screen went black. I sat there in the quiet house, Mom's urn on the mantel, her voice still echoing in my ears, and finally let myself cry, not from grief. Not from anger, from relief. Because for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. Wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Wasn't performing quiet gratitude for people who saw kindness as invitation to take more. I was just myself. Complicated, sharp, free. And as the afternoon light slanted through windows that were mine, in a house that was mine, I finally understood what Mom had known all along. That sometimes the greatest act of love isn't sacrifice. It's teaching someone they're worth fighting for. Even if the person they have to fight is family.